Northern Power Women podcast. For your career and your life, no matter what business you're in.
Well, hello. An enormous happy new year to you and welcome to 2020, blimey. I'm Sam Walker, thanks so much for listening. It's episode 31 of the Northern Power Women podcast. Get out there and shake your own pom-poms. This month, we held our live panel in Manchester at Pinsent Masons, where we talked about women-only business spaces, New Year career resolutions, and how to figure out your own worth in the job market.
But if you're in employment, then you are your own product. So put the word self in there instead of product, and you come up with like yourself. Be proud of yourself. Identify traits that might be seen as your own weaknesses and present themselves as strength. And if you go into a new year with those resolutions, then you can't fail.
The big interview is with Northeast businesswoman Nickie Gott, who shares her extraordinary story of huge successes and devastating personal and professional challenges.
I won the Northeast Woman Entrepreneur of the Year Awards and life was absolutely fantastic. And my husband said that when I went up on the stage to collect my award, he said, "What were you doing?" He said, "You brushed your shoulder." And I said, "That was me knocking the gremlin off my shoulder." 4 weeks after I got that award, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
And this month, there are more Northern Power Women shout-outs. Will you get a mention? But first, let's catch up with the founder of Northern Power Women, who, as ever, is ready to tackle 2020 head-on. The wonderful Simone Roche, MBE, with some news from HQ.
Well, happy New Year. 2020 is amongst us, and big congratulations to our power listers, Marion Sudbury, OBE, Claire Dove, CBE, and Dame Sue Campbell, who have all been recognised in the 2020 New Year's Honours List. Great way to kick off 2020 and our 5th year of Northern Power Women. I just can't believe it. We have got lots in store as ever, starting with announcing that EY are our new headline partners for the 5th Awards. And we're announcing our shortlist this month along with our new Power List and Future List. So watch out on all of our social channels for an explosion of yet more Northern Power Women role models. And we finished 2019 in a flurry of activity at Pinsent Masons. And so big thanks for hosting our judging panels, 3 days of them, and also this month's podcast with 3 of our judges taking part. Sarah Maskell, MBE, Mentor of the Year winner from last year, Jill Hodgson, and Russell Miller from the Alliance Business School. And our person with purpose is absolutely one not to miss with the force of nature, of Northeast nature, that is Nickie Gott. Can't wait for you to listen to her story. Thanks again for all of your support with our Agents of Change survey. Watch this space for the results in the new year. We continue also our search for female directors across Lancashire looking to scale their business. Get in touch, connect at Northern Power Women for more information if you think that you know someone or you want to, as part of your business, scale with our fully funded mentoring programme with Lancashire County Council. And as we roll into our celebratory year, we look forward to working with United Utilities on a long year partnership across Northern Power Women and Northern Power Futures programmes. So look forward to sharing those with you. We also continue our partnership with the Cooperative Bank too. And we also start the new year with our final in the NatWest Role Model Series taking place in Spinningfields on the 8th of January. We're also going to be taking part in Liverpool City Region's first ever Good Business Festival in October, which is all about profit through purpose. So again, we'd love to get involved as we get involved with Northern Power Women and Northern Power Futures. So fantastic. Thanks everyone for such a brilliant 2019 and happy 5 years for Northern Power Women in 2020. And we look forward to hearing more from you and working with you.
Thank you very much to the brilliant Simone Roche. Here is to Northern Power Women in 2020. Now, let's find out what we got together and talked about this month, because on every episode of the Northern Power Women podcast, you get to listen to what happens when we put our heads together and talk about 3 topical issues facing women and men in the workplace. It can get serious, heated, and hilarious, often in the same session. This month, we were in Manchester.
Hello, from a beautifully sunny Manchester this afternoon. Isn't it really sunny, everyone? Welcome to episode 31 of the Northern Power Women podcast. And a massive thanks to Pinsent Masons for hosting us here this afternoon. Not only have they put up with us for the last 3 days while we have been judging, deliberating, quite a bit of arm wrestling as well, as part of our Northern Power Women Awards judging process, where we have had 3 days, 65 judges reviewing 1,480 nominations. I think anyone will agree that is no mean feat. And if our judges haven't worked hard enough, we decided that to close out the judging session, we would invite 3 of our stellar judges onto our panel and some of our judges into our audience to be part of episode 31 discussion. So thank you. A big round of applause, actually, for all of our judges. And also, really importantly, a massive round of applause for all of those people who took the time to nominate and celebrate phenomenal role models across the north of England. But let's get into the show, I reckon. And I'm going to introduce, without further ado, our fantastic panellists. The first is Russell Miller, is the Director of External Relationships and Partnerships at the Alliance Manchester Business School, part of the University of Manchester. Russell is curious. I'm passionate about connecting people. He loves the moment when creativity leads to connections and believes collaboration is crucial for success. Could not agree more. Russell, welcome. Welcome to Jill Hodgson, who's the president for Flowers on the Farm. Jill is a farmer from the East Riding of Yorkshire who in 2011 founded Flowers from the Farm to help and encourage more people to grow cut flowers for market. And Flowers from the Farm now has over a phenomenal 700 members nationwide. And more exciting in that Jill is our current Mentor of the Year from the Northern Power Women Awards this year. I'm delighted to welcome you back as a judge and panellist today. And finally, but no means least, the awesome Sarah Maskell MBE. Sarah was born and raised in Yorkshire before joining the RAF, where she served for nearly 20 years. You don't look old enough, surely. Reaching the rank of Wing Commander. Since leaving, she has enjoyed a global diversity and inclusion role at HSBC, where she works to integrate inclusion into financial services, both colleague and customer facing, and supports Northern Power Women. Of course, she says. Of course, welcome to all of our panellists. As you know, on the Northern Power Women podcast, we always talk about starting a conversation. If you would like to get involved at all, please connect with us at North Power Women, #NPW podcast. So whether you've got a question, suggestion for a panelist, or you would like to see one of your thoughts or ideas or questions thrown into Ask the Hive, please do get in touch. So now, let us start with the conversation. A new centre for women entrepreneurs is opening in an empty unit in a shopping centre in Dundee. What benefits do women-specific schemes like this have? And is anything lost by having single-sex working spaces? Sarah, I'm coming your way.
One of the benefits that we have from carving out single-sex space in terms of this particular example in Dundee is really a platform, my opinion, is to engage and inspire others, whether you are carving out a space for the production or making or selling of something. It's also that participation in the leadership decisions, in the structural financial decisions that are going to make and change and engage others. You can elevate others, elevate their expectations, amplify their work. I don't think it's somewhere that you're going to create a male-only or female-only space. I think people need to be recognised for what they can contribute, and great work for Dundee for doing this. And yeah, shopping centres are changing around the UK. If they can integrate some form of elevation activity, particularly in the north, then I'm all for it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sarah. Especially in the north, actually, I reckon. Sarah. Jill, I'm coming your way.
I absolutely love this project. Reading further into it, I read that the chief exec called it a place where women can test the market, and this really resonates. Having set up a cooperative from scratch, I realise how difficult it is to find a place where you can take your idea to market with no money behind you. And that's really, I think, what these affordable pods are giving. These places are few and far between. I ended up going to a farmer's market. I had this idea. I took it there. It cost me £20, £30, and I realised I had an idea I could then take nationwide. Not everybody is as lucky, or maybe farmers markets don't meet every single criteria. Self-employment brings challenges. These entrepreneurs, they've got to be their own sales manager, accountant, PR officer, and life outside paid employment is scary and a lonely place. I think if these pods provide a familiar, unthreatening surroundings in which these new women, these new entrepreneurs can meet together, can talk, to share their concerns. Most new setups fail in the first few months. If they can get past that first 6 months, so many of them then thrive and they grow. I think this centre is a great place just to give people that initial boost, just to get the thing going.
Brilliant, and congratulations to you. 20-30 quid. Bargain, Jill, bargain. So Russell, you're collaborative and curious. Is this right up your high street?
Yeah, absolutely. I think something isn't working, so bespoke solutions are needed. There are nearly twice as many women-owned businesses in the US as there are in the UK, and entrepreneurship in the UK for women is more challenging, and there are some specific challenges to that. So if you look at primary care, perception of skills and access to funding, there are 3 things that keep coming up over and over again as being specific issues for female entrepreneurs. In terms of solutions, programs, access to local networks like this is a really good idea. I also think that things like women-specific programs and networks are valuable and should be promoted. We at the university run a program called She's the Business. It's quite original because most of our programs are aimed at all sexes, all backgrounds. But this program is specifically aimed at young women, and it's to look at the specific challenges that they face, but mixed in with some inspirational speakers. So it's all about bespoking and personalisation and making sure that we've got solutions to fit the problem, really.
Yeah, and I've been part of the She Means Business program, and I think, as Jill was saying earlier, many entrepreneurs can fail in those first few months, first year or 18 months can be for where female entrepreneurs can go, fail. So I think it's fantastic to be doing it within university at that almost the myth busting stage. I think sometimes, isn't it? So just in the room, how many people have used co-working spaces? Show of hands. Oh, not many for the co-working. Just only sort of 10%. How many were aware of female-only spaces? I don't know. No, so really lack of awareness. Would you use a female-only working space, Karishma?
I think it'd be cool too, but I feel like, is there a real need for it? Do you think?
Well, it's interesting. Many years ago when I was in the London town, the great entrepreneur and activist Lynn Franks, she'd set something up in an old Lloyd's banking building in Covent Garden called the Beehive. And it was fantastic. And this was years ago. We're talking probably 12 years ago, before a lot of the co-working. And she was berated for it, to say, well, you're talking about equality, but why are you putting it in a female-only space? And I think much to sort of Jill and Sarah and Russell's point is, sometimes it's about that safe space that you can grow a sense of an idea and let it incubate.
To be honest, it's if you look at Huckletree, if you look at all these co-working spaces, they have programs of activity around them, whether they're events or networks or mentor programs. So I think having co-working space which is designed for women and networks and event series that are designed for women, that's what the added value is.
There's a great space in Liverpool, isn't there, Alice? Been there for many years at the Women's Org, which is sort of female only space, and that's a very positive space, isn't it?
It is a very positive space, and there's an awful lot of female entrepreneurs who've built businesses coming out of that environment. I'd particularly take the point, I think, about the networking side, because it can be very, very daunting as a woman to walk into a room full of men. It can help sometimes, because at least you're the bit of variety in the room and people might want to talk to you just for that reason. But a lot of the time it can be quite daunting, and to start off in a female environment where you think you're going to have a bit more in common with people to talk to, and to sort of use that as a learning space, I think is excellent.
Okay, I'm coming back up. Let me lunge. I'm lunging your way.
It's Kate Dodd here from Pinsent. I think providing a space for people who are entrepreneurs, particularly if they've come out of corporate businesses, is really important, because I think the isolation of working from home, lots of people talk about setting up in their spare room, and I think if you're taking a leap of faith, that idea of being there with other people who can mentor you, support you, and just provide that shoulder to cry on sometimes, I think is really important, and it helps to kind of break down this sense of isolation, which I think is probably growing all the time in the way in which we live our lives.
Brilliant, thank you. And as we move on to question 2, lots of people do think about changing or upgrading their jobs as the new year starts. What are your top tips on negotiating a new salary or pay rise, or even finding out what you're worth? Oh, that's a big one, isn't it? The finding out what you're worth. Here you are, I'll do it for free, we'll give it away. Is that just me? Yeah, that's just me. Hold on. Russell, I'm going to you.
So my background's the cultural sector and education sector, so we just don't negotiate pay whatsoever. It's never been thought of mine, to be honest. The nearest I've come to negotiating any kind of work changes was when my children were born, and I negotiated compressed hours. So could be argued it's a similar sort of process. So for me, it was about timing. Is this the right time to be asking for compressed hours? Thinking about the situation from the management perspective and actually from an organisational perspective. Will the organisation benefit from me working these hours, or what sort of consequences might there be? And also thinking about a review process as well, checking in with people. Is this working for you? Is it still working for me? So like I say, my experience is really about negotiating compressed hours, not salary.
Okay, but it's still a negotiation, right? Isn't it? And checking back in again. I am coming to you, Sarah.
I think it's a really interesting time as well, how we approach work, how we approach employment. There is obviously a new opportunity within a new year. Everybody sets their resolution. Most people, it includes going to the gym or finding a new start or be feeling valued. For me, I think that the key piece would be to do a personal audit, to do that a little bit of self-care, taking stock, setting a starting landscape, reflect on your skills. What have you got from a commercial sense? What have you got in terms of experience? Just done a fantastic judging session on personal attributes and how people are sharing and elevating that with others. And also looking at what your next step is. Are you wanting to stay on the same path, or is this an opportunity to take a stepping stone to a different journey? So be limitless.
Oh, be limitless. Oh, I like that. Jill, you're super organised, but you're all over this.
As somebody who left university in the early 70s and who's been self-employed ever since, this idea of a salary, it's a new one to me. And as for a pay rise, well, I'm still waiting. But the bit about finding out what you're worth, I suppose for the self-employed person, this actually is, you'd interpret this as finding out what your product is worth. And so I sat down and thought about that, and I came up with 3 points, and they were, and I think it's important to like your product. Be proud of your product, and also identify those traits that might be seen as your product's weaknesses and learn how instead to portray them as strengths. But if you're in employment, then you are your own product. So put the word self in there instead of product, and you come up with like yourself. Be proud of yourself. Identify traits that might be seen as your own weaknesses and present themselves as strengths. And if you go into a new year with those resolutions, then you can't fail.
Oh, I like those. I think we all need to be doing that. How do people feel about that self versus product? Any top tips on negotiating, or negotiating a pay rise? Alison, I knew you'd have one. I knew.
As an employer, I think nothing is more of a turn off than someone just coming to you and saying, I should be paid more because I know someone else who's paid more or works somewhere else or whatever. I think it's really important to think about what your role is in the business and what you are employed to do, and are you doing that, and what are you adding as value, and proving your worth in that way, rather than just saying you need to pay me more, I'm going to go somewhere else, which some people do, because that doesn't help an employer at all. We have a lot of people as well who work flexibly, and that goes back to the negotiating hours thing. We always ask people, we're not sort of overly draconian or anything, but we always ask people to complete a flexible working request, because it applies their brain as to what's the impact going to be on the business, how can we get around this, how can we make it work best for both sides, rather than just thinking purely about what they want to do out of it. Because, as employers, we need to think about our business as well, and it helps them to realise that.
It almost feels like it's going back to how we did the judging today. It's almost like that team discussion, isn't it? As to what matters to you, it works all round. Sarah.
So I think your point just resonated, actually. Having moved from a public sector employer to a private sector, there was a huge amount of self-doubt, because I went from a really well publicised pay scale to being in an environment where it's commercially sensitive. So actually, you've got to remember that you're the only one of you, and you can compare your role with somebody else, but you can never compare yourself with somebody else. So trying to understand the value of the offering, trying to understand what drives you, what are your motivations, and understanding how that fits. So it's not finding a job that fits. You're not a jigsaw puzzle. It's trying to make sure that your opportunities meet your expectations. And that for me has been really quite liberating in terms of personal value and personal strengths as well.
It's almost, we're just constantly still learning, aren't we? We just keep learning, and I think it's important. I think that's where your audit comes into play as well. Please do get in touch, keep the conversation going at North Power Women, hashtag NPW podcast. Our final question. Do you have any career resolutions for 2020? And what's the one thing you aim to implement or change about the way you work? Jill?
Well, speaking for all 65-year-old women in the country, 2020 is the year we eventually get to retire. Of course, being a farmer, arable farmer, cattle farmer, flower farmer, I'm not going to retire. But instead, I've got to realise that as time goes on, my energies, my strength get less. So I've got to learn to work more efficiently, to use the energies I've got better. I do have one big resolution, which I really hope you've all got time to listen to. I want to get flowers back onto every patient's bedside in hospital. Now, the benefits of proximity to living green matter are well documented, but we've got to go back to 1996 to when flowers first started disappearing from patients' bedsides at a hospital up in Aberdeen. There have been myriad objections put forward. I can answer every single one of them. So if there's somebody out there listening in the NHS as trust manager who's brave enough just to look at this question one more time, do get in touch. I want to talk with you. That's my ambition for 2020.
How do they get in touch, Jill?
Twitter, yes, at the patient mole. It even sounds like somebody in hospital, doesn't it?
It's like it's meant to be. At the patient mole, if you want flowers back on the bedside. Russell?
Yeah, so I've got 2 children under the age of 5, so this might not seem like a biggie to people, but just reading more, because I don't have any time to read whatsoever. This year, it took me a whole year, but I read a book.
And you're in academia, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, that was and that was a Road to Somewhere by David Goodhart, and it really gave me a new perspective on the whole Brexit thing, and I kind of want to take that theme, look at motivational books, and think about business books in particular, and think about how that could inspire me to work differently or just be differently. So that's a big one, really. I'm just going to try to read. Yeah.
That totally resonates with me. About a year ago, I got into Audible, so I'm still guilty of not doing that whole paper book. I just can't do it. I think I spend a lot of time either driving or I just can't get into doing it. But Audible has absolutely changed my life. Sarah, you're on the campaign for flowers. You're on the campaign for books. What are people joining you in your resolution for the new year?
So, apart from I have just joined my very first book club, which is in my new village where I live, and we do read books that I would not normally have read. The only thing I would say is don't listen to Audible on a dark train listening to a psychological thriller, because when somebody taps you on the arm for a cup of tea and you scream, it doesn't go down well. For 2020, my I suppose aspiration is I'm going to try and see in me what other people see. So try and reflect, look at my reflection a bit more. So I've got 2 young daughters. I work really hard to try and make sure they have a pathway and an avenue to succeed, taking away the barriers that I had or perceived to have had. But I think sometimes we forget to look at ourselves. We talk about this personal audit and it's very sort of calculated, but sometimes I just think we need to stop and look in the mirror. It resonates with imposter syndrome. It resonates with just wanting to be a better version of yourself. Actually, I don't want to be a better version. I just want to be the version of myself. So there's no big spin on that. It's just about a bit of self-care, really, being a bit more mindful about how I'm treating myself.
We're all with you on the self-care. I think sometimes everyone in this room can kind of commit to a bit more self-care. Anybody got any good resolutions? Yes, Kate.
I'm massively getting into mindfulness, and I think as a business we're looking at setting up wellbeing spaces in each of our offices, because we've discovered there are already people getting together in the mornings before work to meditate together. To think that we'd even be talking about meditation in the workplace even kind of 3-4 years ago is unbelievable, and I think that type of approach as kind of prevention rather than cure is really positive.
Fantastic. Anyone else over here? Eve, I knew you would.
My commitment is to take really small moments throughout the day, whether that's at home or at work. So even if it's in the lift, you don't need to be anything to anybody, and actually to just take a moment of calm, or just to think about what's important for you, whether it's about being who you are and recognising who you are. Commit to those small moments throughout the day to really think about those.
I've just been speaking. There's a group of women over in Liverpool who are doing a piece of project, and they've taken a stance on, instead of one big idea, they're trying to commit and deliver 1,000 miniature ideas, and then it's the sum of all those parts can create some real mischief and, you know, some kind of real disruption, and actually just some small, it's a sum of all those parts of change. I resonate with everything. It's that trying to invest in your own kind of self-care. We can run around at a million miles an hour, but I think as I come into year 5 of the Northern Power Women campaign, it's being really mindful of, for this sort of really miniature team that we have, and kind of really having self-care for them. And then equally, as we've seen in our judging sessions, how can we work smarter together to use this fantastic platform that we've built to enable more opportunities, even if it's the small things. Sarah's got another one.
It's not so much a resolution, it's just a reflection. So I think the small things resonates with me. Having just been on family holiday, not in considerable cost and travel and hours and miles, and 2 kids, asked them what their favourite part of this tropical holiday was. One of them was climbing in bed, so all 4 of us were laid in bed because we were super tired from jet lag. And the second one, when we came home, was because they'd still got sand in their shoe from their holiday, but we all had. And it just really made me realise that it wasn't about the process of going, it was about the journey that we'd been on together. And, you know, I'm still finding sand, by the way, but I think it's they're just those small reflection moments, and just making sure we value those.
That's really important. You talked about that earlier, reflection. It's so important. So, Krishma, we have time for one more resolution.
Okay, so I feel like it's something that I've already been doing, but it's just doing more of it. So I feel like I've come from London and now I'm in Manchester, and I feel like that's because I've been listening to myself a lot more. So I want to do that completely. I know it's not always the easiest, but I want to be true to myself and listen to what sparks me inside and go with that a little bit more, rather than doubting it. Just go with it. If you feel it, do it.
I love that. And on that night, if you feel it, do it. Big thank you to our fantastic panellists this afternoon. Thank you.
Another big thank you to Pinsent Masons in Manchester. Our panel, thank you to you as well. And of course, if you came along to watch, we love to see you. So do keep your eye on Twitter at North Power Women for details of our next recording. And if you'd like to host us, well, we'd love to come and see you. Just get in touch. podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. Now, this month's interview is with a woman who had spectacular success in business, winning awards, receiving honours. But she's also faced devastating challenges and losses in business and in her personal life as well. Nickie Gott, OBE, runs NG Consulting, and formerly she ran the very successful events company She's Got It. I asked her how her business career began.
I had a bit of a rocky start. I left school with not a single qualification to my name and ended up just going and finding a job. I used the gift of the gab, really. And I went and found myself a job, got married, and when I was 3 months pregnant, I was made redundant and out on my ear. So myself and my husband were really struggling because I was a very big earner in the partnership. So I had my little girl, and we were really struggling to make ends meet. And unfortunately, but he was the best mistake I ever made, I fell pregnant with my little boy when she was 16 months old.
Oh my gosh.
And he was a very poorly little boy for 4 years. So I had to devote my time to looking after him. And it was after that I kind of was on the sort of really feeling very lousy and very low, and just kind of had a bit of a light bulb moment where I realised that the only thing that was stopping me in life was myself. So I looked at what I was doing at the time, and I was running a local toddler group, and I was helping fundraise in the community, and that sort of drew a passion in me. And I kind of put myself on distance learning and set myself 5 goals, and one of them was to run my own business, and that's how it all began. The irony of it is, last Thursday I stood in front of an audience of graduates, 800 people, and I was given an honorary degree, and I haven't got an ology, I haven't got an A-level, I haven't got an O-level.
Which university was that, or college was that?
That was Open University.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. So when you set your company up, Nickie, it was you at your kitchen table, right? I mean, that's a big step. That's a big step to take into the world of business. Had you done loads of business plans and knew exactly what to do and when?
No, I did nothing of that. I kind of went out and offered my services free of charge to get some experience in what I was interested in, because I obviously had no formal qualifications or experience, and I had a real sort of passion for kind of marketing and events. And so I just wrote to local authorities and said I'd really love to kind of do it, but I've got no experience, I'll come and do it for nothing. And somebody actually employed me on £7 an hour to come and help them in a local authority. And I did that for 18 months. And then I saw a job advertised for working for a local authority part-time doing that. So I applied thinking, well, while I do that, then I can kind of have the business building up in the background. So I did that, and then when I felt time was right, I left that job and took it up full time. And we carpeted half the garage, and we set up in my garage at home.
And what did those first few years feel like? You must have been on such a steep learning curve. Was it exciting? Was it terrifying? How was life at that time?
It was absolutely terrifying, because I think as women we're not very good at saying how good we are, but also there's that kind of imposter syndrome, and you spend a lot of your time worrying that somebody's going to kind of realise that you're talking a load of bull and calling you out on it. So you kind of go into meetings and you say, yes, I can do that, and then you come away and think, oh, cool, how am I going to do that? And the kind of peak came at year 5. I'd recognised in kind of year 4 that my skill set were not of enough depth to give me the growth that the company needed. So I took a big step to employ somebody on more money than I was actually taking myself to come in and put in the foundations into the business. And it was fantastic. She came in, and very quickly we pitched for an international contract, and we won a multi-million-pound contract, which was staggering. And we won that. And then in 2007, we were in the midst of delivering that, and I won the Northeast Woman Entrepreneur of the Year awards. And life was absolutely fantastic. And my husband said that when I went up on the stage to collect my award, he said, what were you doing? He said, you brushed your shoulder. And I said, that was me knocking the gremlin off my shoulder.
Amazing.
But 4 weeks after I got that award, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
That, I can imagine, was an horrendous time of your life, especially as you said, you had literally reached the dizzying heights that you never dreamed when you were sitting around your kitchen table that you would achieve. You did have people working for you at that stage. So I suppose had you still been in your garage, however successful you'd been, you couldn't have carried on. You were able to do that.
No.
But how on earth did you navigate those months and months of treatment?
It was tough. I mean, the first reaction is just to retreat. I'm very fortunate. I've got an amazing hubby who's really, really supportive. And I spent a couple of weeks kind of digesting the information, but then it just kind of was business as usual, I suppose. I sat down with my admin sort of girl who was really fantastic, and we worked on my diary and looked at my peak and troughs over the 6 months that I was having chemo, at what were going to be my highs highs and my lows health-wise, and chemo hits you in various ways. And we just kind of worked out my appointments should only be on the times when I was coming to the end of that run of chemo. I went into work, I had my chemo on a Friday afternoon so that I could have the weekend to recover. And I used to go to work on a Friday morning and then leave half an hour before my chemo and get home. And my mum and husband would be waiting here with a Bucks Fizz and a movie. So that was kind of how we got through it, really. And just kind of big girl pants on and off you go.
How did it change you?
It changed me in a way that I was very scared, and I was never a scared person. I used to look forward to everything, get overexcited about things, and I became a bit more cautious about things, less impulsive. So it changed me in that sense, but it taught me a few lessons in business, that you are central to the business and that I had set up things very well, that the business was able to survive, and that was fantastic. Further along the line, there were some very, very downsides to how my health progressed, but at that time we got through it, and we got through it well.
I mean, your business was you, essentially. It bore your name. It was something you had created from absolutely nothing, from scratch. You'd built it up. I mean, you were so successful in this business, working with huge clients, Nissan, Hitachi, you mentioned the local councils. I mean, you worked, of course, St Andrew's Day in Edinburgh. To take a step back must have been incredibly hard. Did you engage with the business in the same way once you had been given a better bill of health, or did you have a change in attitude to the way you worked?
No, I kind of engaged in the same way. I mean, took me a while to get strong again, sort of not too tired. Yeah. I used to work ridiculous hours, and I kind of stepped back a little bit from that because I physically couldn't.
Yes.
I can remember going into work one day when I was really tired and sort of turning up, and I felt like a spare part because they didn't really need me, and that was a good feeling in one sense. So that was good. But no, we kind of, fortunately, it was the start of a 5-year contract. So it was fantastic in that I was the key sales driver in the business. I was the one that went out and found the business. So we had that contract. It enabled us to have that comfort that I didn't have to worry too much then.
Now, moving forward, of course, incredibly successful. You're working with, the North East Chamber of Commerce. You were awarded an OBE. Incredible. Congratulations for your services for female entrepreneurs and just your incredible success.
Thank you.
And then this year, Nickie, devastation, I suppose, because you had to make the decision to close the company that you had spent so long building up.
Yeah. When the contract that we had, which was the Edinburgh Christmas contract, it was a hugely successful financially and physically for the company. We lost that contract in 2013. I think it was slightly a political move because we weren't a Scottish company and it was all around the referendum. But we lost that contract and it nearly crippled the company, and I had to make some very drastic changes. And one of them was to get rid of my right-hand woman, which was really quite sad, but it was the right thing to do because the business couldn't have survived. So we spent the next 5 years building the company back up. And in 2017, we had finally turned a profit, and it was fantastic. We were getting back on our feet. We'd applied for a government grant, and we were given a substantial amount of money on a government-backed loan. And I'd put in a new sort of growth plan. I'd done a business plan for the first time ever. We'd gone through due diligence, and that was at the end of 2017. So 2018 was a big year for us. It was kind of launching a new side of the business, a lot of investment. And in January 2018, I collapsed at work, and I had developed in fact, my scar tissue of my breast cancer, which was now 10 years old, and it developed into septicemia. Gosh. I was extremely ill in intensive care. And when I came round, the decision had to be taken that I had to have a mastectomy because it was irreparable damage to the breast tissue. That was really hard to deal with mentally and physically because they couldn't do reconstruction either. So that broke my heart. But I got my head around it, had my operation, and had just returned to work when, unfortunately, our daughter delivered our grandson and he didn't survive. So I became super mum and super gran because she has another little boy. And I just threw my heart and soul into looking after them. And I hadn't given myself enough time to get well. And I got very, very, very ill. And I got meningitis. So I was admitted into hospital in the summer. I was in for quite a long time. And while I was in hospital, we had a client go bust on us, owing us some money. So by the time I came out of hospital and returned to work in this sort of this sort of autumn of last year, things weren't great, but I still believed that we could make a success of it. I literally did everything I could. My husband and I put some money into the business. We put our heart and soul into it. But my body wasn't ready, and I collapsed again in November, and I had further kind of development, which was encephalitis, where the infection had gone into my brain, and I got paralysis down my left side and a short-term memory loss. So I was back in hospital for quite some time, and my husband and I had to take the decision then that for my health's sake, I could not continue working like this. So I came out of hospital and I went back to work in January and sat down at my desk and looked at all the pieces of paper in front of me and was struggling to make sense of things because my brain was still not healed. And it was the hardest decision I have ever taken, despite any of the health issues I've had. It was one of the hardest days of my life.
Firstly, I am so sorry at what you and your family have been
you
through.
Don't need to be.
Absolutely horrendous. Your strength to have even be talking to me today, Nickie, frankly, is incredible. To go through one of those things would be enough to just paralyse so many of us, because it's so difficult to have all of those things together. I cannot even imagine how hard that decision was. But goodness me, if there was, I suppose, ever a message from your body saying, please stop, I think you got those messages loud and clear. How did you cope? You made the decision. It was an incredibly hard decision. How then did you nurture your own well-being in the months that followed?
Well, the hardest thing for me is I'm quite a proud person, but I'm an honest person, and I always believe in doing the right thing. And so to let people down was the hardest thing for me, and that was the hardest thing I had to deal with. So I didn't take the decision lightly, but I've got some great people around me. I made some calls to some people who were in the business community, and somebody wrote me a press release because I was worried about my reputation and what it would do to me and my family. My husband and two of our friends put me in a car and took me away for the weekend when the press release was announced, because they didn't want me here because I was so scared what would happen. And they were going, it will be fine. And I'm saying, no, it won't. And I was just shocked but thrilled at just how lovely everybody was. And I got calls from like the business editor to say, I'm so sorry. The business community sending me the lovely messages saying you've been an amazing person, you've done so much for the region, because I'd chaired so many women in business boards. I'd done loads of work to encourage women in business. So I suppose in all of that, I'd kind of lost some of the things that I'd done that weren't my business, and I'd lost some of the good that I'd done that I didn't get paid for. So I suppose they say what goes around comes around, and I kind of reaped the reward of that. So in one sense, that was lovely. So I took a bit of comfort from that. I had a few duvet days, don't get me wrong, and I had a few tears, and you're going to make me cry now. But my husband and I have got a house, we've got a family, we have to survive. And I didn't want to give up. I wasn't ready to give up. I have so much more to give. So I just started to make a few calls to people and say, look, you know my skills. I'm here if you need me. And then people said, yes, please. And so I got back out and I started working, and I'm now doing some thoroughly rewarding work. Some of it is in my own time charitably, and some of it is working for somebody, and some is some consultancy. It's work in supporting organisations to broaden their networks and to help them with their business development, and a little bit of marketing on the side as well. And I'm feeling more rewarded now than I have for a very, very long time. And I'm also feeling, touch wood, very well.
Well, that's good to hear. I was going to ask how on earth you were. I'm really glad to hear that you are feeling better. It's fantastic, isn't it? That, you know, as you were telling me the story then, my heart was breaking for what you went through. And then I thought about the fact you've always really prided yourself on the fact that female networks especially, but all business networks, are so valuable, and we shouldn't brush them away, and we shouldn't think that they're just that thing we have to go to, because they can really be there when you needed them. And all those years you'd put in nurturing those business networks, when you did need them, they came through.
Yeah, they did. And do you know what? I have a lot to give as a person. I know that. I've made mistakes, but the business went down through no fault of my own, and I had to keep reminding myself that, and that was really hard. But I'm good at what I do. I know that. And I think, going back to as women, we're really bad at telling ourselves what we're good at. And I have a sort of saying that I always say when I go out and talk. I did a talk in a school. I'm a business advisor for a school, and it's a voluntary role. And I gave a talk to the kids the other day, and I said, you've got to go out and shake your own pom-poms, because nobody will shake them for you. And you've just got to get out there and just make it happen, because if you don't, what's the option? There's nobody gonna go and do it for you. Nobody's gonna do the work for you. You've just got to get off your bum and make it happen. And you know, last week I was on stage getting an honorary degree. I mean, good God, I was so humbled, and I felt a bit embarrassed. And I said to the lady who was kind of giving the sort of citation about me, I said, but my business went down. And she said, and she said, you have done some amazing things for this region, and you've done some amazing things for women in business, and you've bounced back, and you're now doing some amazing work now. So you are the most worthy of candidates. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, so I am.
And doesn't it feel weird to say that out loud? It's still ingrained in there somewhere, doesn't it? That we especially as women, we're like, oh, don't blow your own trumpet. We need to do it more.
I know. The best thing is the title is Master of the University, but God bless her, my mum put on Facebook, I'm so proud of Nickie. She got Master of the Universe.
Your mum's got it right.
I am now officially He-Man. I am He-Man.
Oh, Nickie, your story is just, I mean, the roller coaster doesn't really begin to describe what you've been through in your business and your personal life. And we all face challenges, and we all face times when we think, where the heck do I go now? For someone who has come out the other side on so many occasions for so many different reasons, what's your mantra, I suppose? What advice can you give?
Get up, get out, shout loud, and shake your pom-poms.
Big thank you, Nickie. Nickie Gott there with some brilliant advice. Don't forget to get out there and shake your own pom-poms. We're good at bigging up other people sometimes, but we must not forget ourselves. Whose life and career would you love to know more about? You know what to do. You just need to drop us a line and let us know. podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. It's also nice, of course, if someone else shakes your pom-poms, right? Or you shake somebody else's. And that's what Northern Power Women shout-outs are all about. It's a place for you just to take a moment to tell the rest of us about how great a friend or a colleague is. Someone who deserves that recognition for just going an extra mile. And here are the first Northern Power Women shout-outs of 2020.
My name's Mahek Man. I want to give a Northern Power shout out to Sarah Johnson, because she's led the way in organising lean-in circles in Newcastle and really getting us all together and inspiring us all. She works for BT.
Hi, my name's Christina McGurk. I am the founder of KCOM's Entrepreneur Management Agency. My Twitter handle is @Christina McGurk, and I would like to give a massive Northern Power Women shout out to one of my best friends and power woman herself, Patricia Keating, who is the founder or director of Tech Manchester. Her Twitter handle is Trish Keating MCR, and she's also the other half of #Patrina, which if you search on Twitter, you'll see all of our history together.
My name is Mihaela Gruja. I'm the founder and director of Research Retold. My Twitter handle is Miha Gruja and @Research Retold. I want to give a Northern Power Woman shout out to Jodie Hill, and her Twitter handle is I am Jodie Hill.
Hi, my name's Julia Felton, and I'm the creator and founder of a company called Business Horsepower, and we work with organisations to help them develop the leadership capability, and we do that uniquely through partnering with horses. And I want to give a big Northern Power Women shout out to actually the NatWest Accelerator, and I'm actually a member of the Accelerator, and I really want to thank all the coaches who've really been helping me grow my business over the last 6 months.
Hi, I'm Rachel Bentley. I'm the small business marketing coach, and that's my business. I have a Twitter handle which is @biz_coach_leads, because that's what I do. I work around Leeds, but I'm actually online. And I want to give a Northern Power Women shout out to Safina Ali, and her Twitter handle is @Safina, 2 F's 2 E's, _Ali, ALI, for just being amazing.
If you'd like to give someone a shout out, all you need to do is record a voice memo on your smartphone. Tell us who you are, who they are, why they deserve a shout out, and if you've got a social media tag for them as well on Instagram or Twitter, let us know that, please. You can email it to podcast@northernpowerwomen.com, or come along to one of our events. We're out and about so often across the north. Just check out our webpage, northernpowerwomen.com, for all the details of where we'll be, and you can come and talk to us there. Ask the Hive is back next month with a great question about leadership.
Who makes a better leader, an extrovert or an introvert? And is it necessarily the one who shouts the loudest that is the best, has the best qualities for a leader? And how do we encourage those who are introverts to be leaders if it's not their natural way of being?
Have you got an opinion? Any experience in this? Share your knowledge with us, please. You can catch up with us at one of those events I just mentioned, or, again, record that voice memo. You'll have an app on your smartphone. It's dead easy. You can then email us the audio, podcast@northernpowerwomen.com. Thank you. Well, there we go for yet another month of great stories, great advice and great ideas. A huge thank you to you for listening. I know I say it every month, but if you tell just one person at work or at home about the podcast, it means more people can join in the conversation. And a review, I know it's a pain, you've got so much on, but if you could spend a minute on leaving us a review or a rating, it really makes a big difference in helping other people find us. So thank you so much. Save the date. The next episode arrives for you on Monday, February the 3rd, 2020. Until then, this is the Northern Power Women podcast. I'm Sam Walker, and this has been a What Goes On media production for Northern Power Women.